Hello, my name is Michael Garrick, and this is Popping Culture. My guest today is a creative consultant, a voice actor, a great comedian, William Woody. Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast, man.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
No problem. Um, we're gonna be talking about superheroes, adaptation. Sorry, but whenever I have comedians on, before we get into topic, whenever I have comedians on, I like to ask. A lot of people like to focus on bombing, but I'm more focused on succeeding. So, when was the first time you killed, and how did it feel?
That's an interesting question. Nobody's ever gone from that angle for me. And the first time I did stand up, the audience was generous. I don't think I would say I killed, but I did. I did relatively well, and that was definitely enough for me to keep returning. If I had I bombed, I think I might have been scared off by it pretty quickly. But I've certainly bombed plenty of times since then. Pretty much any time, if I've got a crowd of say 30 or more, I generally feel pretty secure because I'm not much of an improviser. Most of my material is very scripted, and if I've got a big enough crowd, it'll be tested stuff. So I have a degree of um, reliability with when okay, the audience is going to respond this way to this or that way that. And of course, there are surprises, and it's fun to react to if it. And honestly, it's kind of fun. A friend of mine put it. The written material shows that that a comedian is a good writer. How the comedian acts in the room to a joke not landing or something going one way or another, how he responds to the environment shows that he's a funny person as opposed to just a funny writer. And it's really just not fair the way responding to something in the room is one, in my experience and just observation, 100% of the time the better thing to do than focus on the written material because it's just the audience just appreciates the immediacy of that pretty automatically way more than they're gonna do with a scripted thing. But if I'm dealing with a crowd of 20 to 30 or more, I'm generally pretty comfortable and pretty confident that I'm going to land. If it's under that, it's usually okay. This is a crowd work night. I'm going to talk to people in the audience, and certainly when it gets to under 10, it's just the material is not going to land for me because I don't know what it is. The smaller the audience gets, the more they can detect the insincerity. They can see the falsehood that I've said this before, that I don't mean what I'm saying, and that I'm not like making eye contact and engaging them directly. I think I've gone completely off the rails from the question you asked, but
It's all good. It's all good. For someone that's not a comedian, how would you explain bad crowd work?
ooh, bad crowd work. And obviously, you don't want to offend anybody in the crowd, but I'm reminded of a buddy of mine. A friend of mine, Tyler Green, that used to do stand up, and another friend of mine, Marty Simpson, who still does, once had an argument that Simpson was arguing that whatever gets the most laughs from the biggest crowd, well, that's the best comedian objectively. And Tyler took issue to that because it's like, okay, if that's the case, then Jeff Dunham is automatically the best comedian in the world. But Tyler is not really a fan of Jeff Dunham. His humor tends to be kind of obvious and hanging on the low hanging fruit. But I think crowd work needs to be something that can connect immediately. So it needs to be something that's quickly observable. I used to, the more I do it, the more I'm recognizing people are just kind of sometimes people laugh at just my voice to begin with, and you the other day observed that I'm like a Disney villain, and that has been tracking really well for me. But it's got to be relatively. If you're doing crowd work, you kind of got to deal with the obvious, whatever the elephant in the room is. You need to address something is odd about you. I think you need to own it, whatever it is. If you've got, a facial disfigurement. I remember when I was in San Antonio, there was a veteran who had survived some terrible explosion when he was over in Afghanistan, and he was just burnt horribly. But he put on a solid, 5 to 6 minutes of material dealt with his appearance. And I think if something is obvious about you, if you're extremely anything, if anything is just odd about you, you do whatever you got to do to own it. Otherwise, the audience is not going to. That's just going to be kind of an itch in their mind that, okay, what's going on with X about this person, and why are they ignoring it? Where if you address it immediately, it's sort of it lets the audience know that you're comfortable in your own skin. I remember watching a movie, Robert Downey Jr., I think he was playing Charlie Chaplin, and somebody told him comedy is knowing who you are and where you come from. So if there's something very distinctive about you, the way that you're an outlier immediately to the audience is something you need to address. And then just calling back to earlier stuff is pretty automatically helpful. If they laughed at something before, even just mentioning a word from a joke that was said before tends to do better. I think some of the worst crowd work is stuff where the comedian blames the audience for his own, the fact that they're not responding to his material. Whenever I've seen a comedian just blame the audience or get angry that they're not laughing, I remember I was at a show once and he asked the audience for suggestions for stuff to make fun of, and somebody, I think it was around Halloween, so he was asking what people were dressing up as, and maybe one person said Green Man, which is, I think that Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Charlie Day wears this kind of green screen outfit, which, and if you know that, you could do something with it, but this comedian was confused by, well, what is that? I don't know what that is. And he couldn't really go anywhere with it. And then it was an open mic thing, so he came back on later and was just like, I'm just really disappointed that nobody had haven't had any more Halloween costume suggestions. Oh, what do you want the audience to do? Do you think chastising them is going to get them more talkative? I don't know. Yeah.
I think the worst
What
crowd
do you
work.
think?
The worst crowd work experience I ever had was I'll never forget it. Like as long as I live, I'll never forget this. The worst crowd work I had was and this is early on. I remember it was something like a topic. It was something like they were throwing out topics, and I was like, yeah, I'll discuss any topic. It doesn't matter. And somebody screamed out rape, and I was like, rape isn't funny. Like there's nothing funny about rape. Like I got mad serious, and like I got overly serious. And then like, well, I don't want to say overly serious, but like for a comedy show, I got overly serious. And I was just like, hey bro, like don't ever like bring up rape. Like it's nothing funny in rape. And like I went on for like, you beat a dead horse. I went on for maybe 2 minutes about why you should never, why rape isn't funny. And then like I had to like transfer back to my set. And it took a long time to get like from like preaching, I guess, on stage to actually like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be funny right now. Like I don't know. So that was the only bad crowd work experience I had where I went full like, yeah, pretty much preaching, like really like, hey bro, it's nothing funny about this. Like I don't know why you would say that. And when it hit me like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be telling jokes. It was hard to come back full circle. So
Yeah, that sounds awful. I think, and that audience member threw you a landmine. I would, yeah, I think the best move in that case, or the move I would make in that case, which may or may not be the best, is just addressing the fact that the audience member address the bad will that the audience member has used by trying to get you to go into that place. Like, oh, just say something to the effect of, "I know that trick. Anybody got any other suggestions?"
Yeah, I just didn't know. I didn't know the route to go. Like the only thing I
But
was
yeah,
thinking that I could have said was like, "Did you mean prison rape?" Because apparently people laugh at prison rape. So I was like, it was to me. But you know,
yeah, that doesn't sound like there are not many safe routes out of a suggestion like that. How often do you play that card where you ask the audience for suggestions, or was that the last time?
that was the last time, bro. That's an ace that I don't need. That was this was early on in comedy. Like this was super early. Like this is 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. I have never made that mistake again. All my questions, all my crowd work questions already have answers.
Right. Yeah. If I yeah, it seems like the best thing to do in that case would just be to you've got to turn it on the guy because you're the one with the microphone and he's the one who suggests you make rape jokes. So I would say, yeah, if you ever try that again and ask for suggestions and somebody says something horrendous, then just be like, okay, I'm going to talk about how this guy is a horrible person.
Yeah.
And because he probably turned a fair portion of the audience against himself by even suggesting that. This was a man, I assume.
Yeah. It was like a 5'7" Asian fella, and it just I remember his face. I'll never get his face. Like he tried to talk to me afterwards. He just said, "Man, I'm so sorry, bro. I didn't mean it must be said." And like and I accepted his apology. It was just more like, and it's just me. I'm not one of those comedians like you can never make. Well, I guess I did say I was like nothing funny about rape. I've learned on like I don't find anything funny about rape. I'm also not the greatest comedian in the world. Some people can pull it off, and it's amazing. Like when Dave Chappelle did it, it was mind blowing. But I'm just not that good.
I don't. I'm not familiar. I don't. So Dave Chappelle's got a rape joke or something that worked.
It wasn't because it's you have to like you have to catch it in one of his specials.
Yeah,
I don't I can't remember the exact one like him being like, oh, he's raped, he raping somebody. It was just I believe it was something dealing with Bill Cosby.
okay. So even in that case, it's probably more a joke of it's making fun of Bill Cosby more than like the institution of rape.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I wish I could remember it, but like like I said, I just couldn't.
When it's and we don't need to digress into that for this. I mean, it's if you find the link, I'll look at it later. But cool.
All right, it's one of the Netflix specials, but I, it was you're right. We don't need the deep dive. I was just like, how did we get here? That's why I was laughing. Like, how did we? Cool. So you chose superhero adaptations. Am I pronouncing it right? Adaptations? No, I'm not pronouncing it right. Can you pronounce it?
Adaptations.
Adaptation. Thank you so much, buddy. This is what public school does to you.
It's kind of a white people word.
No. I hate when
That
people
might
say
have been
that.
a thing to say.
No, I hate when people say that. Like, no, it just means you're educated. Uh and I need
Yeah,
to do
please.
better.
I'll
Say it again.
yeah. Yeah, we'll. I'm gonna go in and tell you. I'll want that cut from the podcast. Realizing that's a horrendous thing to say that I don't need that on my. I don't need that out there any further than whatever Twitch streamers are watching this live. I apologize.
So, any special reason why you chose this topic?
I guess we're just thinking of things that I could talk about. You mentioned pop culture and whatnot, and there in that moment, I was like, well, it was helping make a decision, and so that's and something I'm relatively. I've seen a lot of superhero movies. I think a lot of us have. So it seems like it would be an easy subject to kind of go on and on about, which is what we need to do if we're talking for half an hour, 45 minutes.
Uh, Cool. Um, so I'll let you start off. Actually, I'm actually interested in hearing what's your least favorite superhero uh, adaptation? God, man, this is so embarrassing. Okay, Uh, you know what I'm trying to say. What's your least favorite?
Oh, well, I think the movie we're going to review later, I thought is pretty low on my list. I'll save some of my reasons for that for when we get into that in earnest at the end. From the MCU, I think probably one of its low points for me would be Captain Marvel. Um, now
Oh man, be
that
careful.
character specific, yeah, well, I'll say that character specifically is not one I ever followed. I didn't. I never had an action figure of the male or female version of that character, which I understand is just somebody that it was like the Shazam character from DC used to be called Captain Marvel, but they let the copyright lapse, and Marvel was like, we can't have our competitor have a character whose name is us. So then Marvel promptly invented the Captain Marvel character so they could, uh, keep their stake in that claim. Uh, but there was a director, Howard Hawks, that Gene Siskel once asked what a great movie was. And Hawks' answer was three good scenes and no bad ones. So you've got the reasons the movie exists, the sort of the best, like the scenes you remember from the movie, and then there are no scenes that just implode logically on it. And coming out of Captain Marvel, I thought to myself, a period of time after I saw it, I thought, okay, that is a movie with no bad scenes and no good ones. It's competent. It 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 accomplishes everything it set out to do, but it didn't really. I don't think it got anywhere excellent. It did not. None of the action was particularly inventive. None of the dialogue really did anything new. The screenwriting felt like it was done by committee rather than a person. Um, uh, the thing with the cat, and the movie's set in 1995, the fact that something was going to be weird about the cat in that movie was so telegraphed that I actually received a telegraph when I was 10 years old in 1995 saying 23 years from now a movie's going to come out that has a weird cat in it. Um, I didn't think it handled anything particularly new. Ultimately, I came out of it and thought, yep, that was a movie. It's just very forgettable. I I don't know if you've ever seen. I always get there's manga and the movie which flip the titles. Battle Angel Alita or Alita Battle Angel, whichever the movie version of that was. Um, I felt like that movie had good scenes and bad ones. So like there were scenes that just went on and on where exposition was just vomited by characters forever, and scenes that were just not great. But it also had some very inventive action and very it took risks, and I really appreciated the inventiveness of it. So even though it was flawed, I think in ways Captain Marvel wasn't. Alita was just automatically more interesting to me because uh, I just enjoyed what it did more. It showed me things that I hadn't seen uh, done in any other movies, where Captain Marvel was more just flying around with Zappo hands and kind of routine.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing that, man. That was very passionate. Yeah, that was great, man. Um, I want to take it back. Do you remember? Well, you're just a little bit older than me, but like I did a little research. And do you, or not remember? Do you recall ever hearing about old serials? This is when stuff was in black and white. People would go to the movie theater, and it would be like a good 10-minute episode, and it would come out like every Friday and Saturday. Kids would go watch it. but they would have like superhero serials. It was like a black and white Superman. They would have Zorro, and that was kind of like the first like really superhero like film or well episode, whatever live action, and they had like the little whatever fake costumes, whatever. And I got to see one episode on YouTube, and it just is crazy to see like what they did back then looks like a horribly edited YouTube video in black and white. So it's just crazy to see how they started there and we are where we are now. A lot of people give Joel Schumacher a hard time for his Batman movie. Is that one that you kind of liked, or do you see why people dislike it?
Uh, when I was a kid, I remember enjoying Batman Forever. I think even at 12 or whatever age I was when the second one came around, I would thought, or when Batman and Robin came around, I thought, yeah, this is, I like it because I like Batman, but this movie is kind of a train wreck. And the older I've gotten, I watched them. Um, this is not good. But honestly, Batman himself has, I mean, he's just changed so much over the decades. Like it's almost like with each passing generation, people have found ways to improve him. Like when he originally showed up in the comics,
Yeah.
he drove around in Bruce Wayne's car, and until somebody, I don't know, one of the higher ups read, he's not just driving around in Bruce Wayne's car, is he? And so that was what gave birth to the Batmobile, because obviously he can't just run around with Bruce Wayne's license plates behind him. And I think in the early comics, he also went around shooting people, just had a handgun and would murder people. And then, this is a children's comic book. We can't have people getting shot and murdered. And they had to come up with a reason for that to happen. So his reason for that was parents were shot in front of him. And so now that's why that's the rule he won't cross. I mean, we're talking about a character who came into being because Bob Kane drew cat ears on Zorro, and is, I think, kind of pretty well peaked with what Christopher Nolan did with the character. And when you go back and read like the origin of Two-Face, he's Harvey Dent is in court. Somebody throws acid on half of his face, and he goes home and takes a knife to one side of a corner, and then goes around and starts flipping a coin and killing people. And I think we can all relate to that. And just over the decades, screenwriters and different adaptations have had the opportunity to make Batman into a much better character than he ever deserved to be. I mean, you think about this is a man dressed as a bat that's punching people that really shouldn't be as compelling as it is, but it's just the age of the thing. It got into our souls before we had standards, and I'm sure that if I imagine if anybody was 35 when Bob Kane created Batman and started reading the stories, this is awful. What? But I think for us that grew up seeing the movies when we were kids and seeing the cartoons and toys and being surrounded by it, that sort of iconography got into us in a way that it's just kind of unfair. I think about Transformers, which is just the most soulless capitalist cash grab. I mean, you think because we're not even talking about one. We're not talking. There's no human element to it. We're talking about alien robots that turn into cars. That's so far from anything that makes sense. But back in the the 80s when the Reagan administration decriminalized or deregulated, they made it legal for you to make cartoons that exist specifically to sell toys to children. Like that's why before the 80s, the coolest cartoon you'll see is like Winnie the Pooh, and then the Reagan times hit, and we get like the more cartoony G.I. Joe, Transformers, He-Man, and just these shows that exist purely to introduce a new character each episode, and the primary conflict of each episode is you don't own him yet, and it's and you look at these old cartoons, these things they're based on, they're just soulless and awful. But it's like my older brothers liked it, and I got into it when I was young, and it doesn't matter. I'm curious to see what they do next. The last Transformers movies, so just awful to me. I loved the first three, but the more they went on, it was just. I think the last one, the one before Bumblebee, it was like they're not even making this for Americans anymore. I don't think.
No.
They sell so well in China, but I don't know. I don't know what kind of cultural narrative standards China has, but it's just something that is very difficult for me to pay attention to. And Bumblebee was another one where I thought, okay, that's a movie with no good, no bad ones. Oh, it was competent but not excellent. I appreciate the difficulty that these massively wealthy studios are in when they try to make these tentpole pictures, because everybody wants to be surprised, which means even the people who are familiar with the source material want to be surprised, which means you can't do exactly what the source material did, or you have to do it in a way that is different from how the source material did it. Because for instance, I'm pretty sure Hawkeye died in the comics. So when a friend of mine and I went to Age of Ultron, my friend was like, Hawkeye died in the comics, and they gave him the unfinished floor in the living room or whatever, all this stuff that sounded like, oh, he only has one thing left to accomplish and then he can die. And then they did the same thing with Endgame, where it looks like one of the two, he or Scarlett Johansson, Black Widow, is going to die, but both times they keep Hawkeye alive in favor of the character that they kill, which it's like they use the fact that those familiar with the comics were expecting Hawkeye to die as a red herring, so they can bait and switch and kill somebody else to keep that character alive. And Captain Marvel, similarly, I can't remember who is bad in the comics versus the movies, but in the whatever it is with the Skrull and the Kree, I think in the comics the Skrull are bad guys and the Kree are good guys. But the movie Captain Marvel, perhaps arguably the most inventive thing that it did, was kind of it used that to play on xenophobia by making the Skrull the good guys where the Kree are the bad guys. I don't know. I've been talking for a while.
No, that's totally fine. Can we both agree though? Out of anything they did, Marvel did, thank God they didn't stick with Hawkeye's real costume.
And it definitely wouldn't have made sense. I mean, for me, I am always going to these movies because, or part of me is always looking forward to seeing the character that I saw in the cartoons or I had the action figure of. So yeah, I realize it doesn't make a lick of reality, and it's kind of a purple knockoff of Wolverine, but I still would have loved to have seen him wear it, even as stupid as it is. It was a good choice of not to put it in there. I think you and I were both talking about how Falcon and the Winter Soldier, like, all right, it looks like it does in the comics, but the Falcon costume just does not look good in real life. I don't know, something about that sock style cap, sort of like Gambit wore in the comics, and maybe the fact that it was white too, just not. It's like sort of transparent, so you can see the actor's skin through it. Just really is not a good. Just keep the goggles and lose the sock mask, because it really is just odd looking. But I was disappointed in the Incredible Hulk when we didn't see, in the cartoon of that, the Abomination looks like the creature from the Black Lagoon on steroids. He's got the little kind of fish spiky ears, and in the movies he just looks like something from Resident Evil went to the gym, which works. It makes sense, but it doesn't look like what I wanted to see. and in the X-Men movies, they keep kind of at the very end of some of them, they won't commit to it for a full movie, but like at the end of X-Men Apocalypse, Cyclops finally he's got like the weird Y straps across himself and the really goofy looking visor. And then at the end of X-Men First Class, Magneto wears the just fire engine red with purple trim helmet and the little spikes on the front that don't do anything. Where most of the movies he's just wearing this kind of muted, kind of brown maroon. So yes, it was probably they made the right choice by not having Hawkeye wear the thing he wore in the comics. But my introduction to Hawkeye as a kid was this arcade game, Captain America and the Avengers, where Hawkeye wore the goofy costume, and I was excited. Like WandaVision introduced white supremacist Vision, which is the one that I grew up seeing, where he's just all white, where he looks like some sort of just this pure, or looks like he came out of the Ku Klux Klan meeting or something, which was not what I ever saw in him, but just whenever a character isn't all white, I fear that is a landmine that must be. No, that's the white power. No, it's just color. Although I wish Evil Vision's eyes stayed blue, because I thought they were cooler before he made that transition.
Yeah. Why do you believe that sidekicks don't work in live action?
Why do I think that sidekicks don't work in live action?
Or if they have, when have you seen them work?
Well, so I think whenever you split the hero, when the main character becomes a handful of main characters, there's this sort of rule that the hero needs to win on account of whatever it is that separates him from any other character. So in the case of a superhero movie, it's going to be whatever his powers are. So he's got to use that to his advantage, or he's going to use whatever his powers are. Where in the so I think I can, or I think the best thing I can do is just what happens when you split it further than two. So in like the early 2000s, X-Men, Fantastic Four, and the second Fantastic Four, each of them, when it came time to solve the problem, to beat the villain, we got to do, you've got to have everybody in the team involved in the victory. So, and because who knows which favorite character might, which audience might like Wolverine or Storm better or whatever. So that means the characters have to kind of all contribute to this machine made out of superheroes at the end to solve the problem. Like in X-Men 1, Storm makes a tornado around Wolverine and Jean Grey has to stabilize him, and Rogue is inside of Magneto's machine getting the power sucked out of her, and Cyclops has to blast Magneto with the laser beams that come out of his eyes while Wolverine chops up the machine. Or Fantastic Four, where what is it? Human Torch gets as hot as he can and spins around Doctor Doom, and Invisible Girl puts a dome over it. The Thing kicks a fire hydrant, and Mr. Fantastic channels the water from the fire hydrant onto Doctor Doom. It's just a very awkward and kind of unsatisfying interaction to see. And I think it's generally more fun to just put all the, like, have one character be the forefront. I thought Avengers, the first one, did a good job at sidestepping that problem by just make Iron Man the hero, make him the one that has to do the riskiest, arguably, thing in the movie, rather than have, the Hulk lift something up and Captain America's shield flies through and hits the button and have everybody just do something to contribute to one action. So I guess the sidekick, I mean, he's just generally is less cool than the hero, and he's going to ultimately kind of either become a stakes character or be a liability. I'm not. I think that's the best answer I got for right now. Why do you think it generally doesn't work?
It's just that Universal, one example, has this deal where Hulk has to be the main character. I mean, Hulk can't have a solo movie, but he can be used as like a second main character. Which, if you notice, when they use Hulk in movies, they do it very well. Like he doesn't feel like a sidekick. He's always used as like a another main character, and I think that works when there's two main characters. But to have like Bucky literally be Captain America's sidekick, it doesn't work unless they're like friends. It can't, it wouldn't, it doesn't really have the same reaction if you had Batman and Robin live action. It becomes very campy in a sense, in my opinion.
Right. Well, and so with that dynamic, I think Batman is just intrinsically a far more interesting character than Robin, who kind of feels more like a rehash of Batman, where Robin is just kind of there to become a liability ultimately and have the villain threaten him. Where Bucky, at least is arguably as strong as Captain America and is going to be able to handle himself. But I mean, both of them are similar enough in what they can do. I mean, they're both just strong, and one of them has a shield. It doesn't really. I don't know that it adds much to the dynamic to have two of them. Oh, and gosh, we're Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Were you aggravated at the fact that all these characters are able to just, or like that Sam is able to just throw the shield toe to toe with Bucky all because he did a few push-ups, even though he hasn't done any of the super soldier serum? Like, it felt really frustrating to me that he appears to be just as strong as Steve Rogers, even though he hasn't had any steroid injections like anybody else who's thrown the shield.
When Iron Man learned how to fly in 2 days, everything else became cool.
Okay, I can I can see, there's a consistency issue potentially with that.
When it comes to groups, we've seen that in Marvel. We've actually, I don't know if it counts for you, but we've seen it with the Universal monsters. When it comes to these ways that they mix and mingle, even going back to like Cowboys and Indians and many other different genres of entertainment, when it comes to them switching from adaptation, when you feel, have you ever seen them switch a character so much that it still worked, but it surprised you?
Change the character so much that still worked, but it's surprising. What is there an example of that you can list where that the answer is yes for you?
And wow, this is gonna sound mad corny, but I was one of the few people that really enjoyed the Spider-Man musical.
Okay, the Turn Off the Dark, that one.
Yeah. I was sad that everybody kept getting hurt, but like musical wise, it was a nice musical. Even with the Wizard of Oz, it's not called the Wizard of Oz. It's called man, not the Wiz. It's the one where they talk about the Wicked Witch. It's the one about the
Wicked.
Wicked. Thank you so much, Wicked. I definitely enjoy Wicked. When you see those, when they, just slide into a new genre, a new adaptation. God, why is this so hard? This is like when I realized I couldn't pronounce SNOW. Like I just say stow. Like I can't pronounce that word for nothing. So I guess this is one of those words.
I'm sorry to do that to you. I would have taken
No, it's fine. No, it's fine. My fiance is gonna watch this and laugh harder than everybody else. Um, but yeah, how do you feel about when they do different genres and it just surprises you, like you love it?
Oh, I know. I'm up for that. If it's like I really enjoyed the MODOK series on Hulu. There's one cold open where that involves, like, he's got a portal to Asgard that he's throwing garbage into, and he's also got another portal in a trash can to his stomach, and he's just like this bit with that and vomiting, which is just hysterical. I have no problem accepting a tonal change or kind of a parody version of the thing. It's as long as it doesn't happen in a. So I haven't seen Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark, but I mean, I would have been up for it. I would have liked to have gone to have seen it. And if I'm going into that with the expectation of that to happen, then I don't have a problem with that. If Spider-Man No Way Home has 6 musical numbers in it, then I'll feel like, okay, we've kind of jumped the shark here. This is not what I paid to see. Yeah, as long as it's staying in or I know, or I think to a degree I could probably enjoy something for what it is. But I would also be kind of annoyed, like, I want more of a serious take with this. And that's part of I think the hardship with doing any kind of an adaptation is, what are the audience's expectations? That, when we go to a Spider-Man movie, we know Spider-Man's going to win, or if he doesn't, there's going to be a sequel where he does, or we want certain boxes to be checked off. I have twin half-sisters, Ava and Jenna was really into Spider-Man stuff where Ava was not. And we were all watching Spider-Man Far From Home together, the one with Mysterio in it. And Jenna and I we knew Mysterio was going to be a bad guy somehow. I was kind of worried that they were going to do a General Zod thing with him, where it was like, oh, he's from another dimension, and to save his own reality, he has to destroy ours. But I was glad that they took the angle that they did. But when Peter starts to hand Mysterio the glasses, my stepmother is like, "Is he bad?" And as soon as that started to happen, the Ava, the sister that was not familiar with the character, it's like, if he is, I'm gonna be mad. And the rest of the night, she just kept saying, "Frickin' Mysterio." So I thought Far From Home did a very good job with that, of surprising both the initiated and the uninitiated with the fact that this, okay, I know he's going to be bad. The what is not the surprising element. It's the how. And ultimately, I thought Mysterio was one of the more absurdly drawn characters, and I was kind of scared that they were going to tone him down the way he looked and the presentation of it. But they leaned into it, and I was so excited to see him. He just looked identical to the way he was drawn to me, and they added some armor on his chest and stuff that I thought only increased the look of the character. I was and then just his personality being such a bitter and petty guy, I loved. So I thought that was handled pretty well.
I think Marvel has done so well with this is the tiebacks to, and a lot of villains are villains because of Iron Man. Hammer was a villain because of Iron Man. Mysterio became a villain because of Iron Man. A lot of, like, it shows that, like, as much as we all enjoy Iron Man, we all have to remember, like, it was a point where this guy was not a good person. And it's not like they just don't throw it away. Like they don't act like, okay, he's good now, life is good. Like, no, he created some supervillains. And, like, that is something that they pulled, and I think that was good to throw in.
Right. What I loved with Mysterio, it wasn't even that Iron Man was a bad guy. Mysterio was just mad because he called my work barf. He was so, his reason was so trivial that he was mad. That I thought really fit well with that vein. And I've never thought the Vulture was a very interesting character. I think Spider-Man, a lot of his villains have the problem of trumping each other. Like, oh, the lizard has one tail. Okay, well, Dr. Octopus has four tails. Why would I be scared of the lizard? Where the Vulture can fly, well, Green Goblin can fly and throw grenades. So it's just why. And Vulture, I never thought that character was drawn very, ever had much menace to him. But I liked the way they gave him kind of this cool helmet, but they gave him the flight jacket with the feather or the fur that looked kind of like, paid homage to the way he was drawn, but at the same time made him, assigned some menace to him in a good way. And I liked the track, the sort of meta track they've taken with the casting with the Spider-Man movies. And of course, Michael Keaton was demanded to be the Vulture because he did that Birdman movie a few years before. But Birdman was about, a guy who used to play a superhero in the past. I'm assuming Michael Keaton got because of his Batman roles. He clearly was making, when Keaton was channeling the Birdman character, he was obviously poking fun at Christian Bale by doing the really gravelly sort of bear voice Christian Bale did in those movies. And then I believe Jake Gyllenhaal was in line to play Spider-Man pretty, not far behind Tobey Maguire. And so they cast them, picked him for Mysterio. I'm not sure if the next one, I don't know if it's going to be introduced to anybody new, but I'm worried that Sony is chasing its own tail with the Spider-Verse thing, and maybe I'm hoping No Way Home is good, but I am scared about it. Just trying to put too much on its plate.
I think as long as they stick with Marvel, they'll do fine. Once they stop taking Marvel's advice, I think that's when it goes downhill. But as long as Marvel has a shared interest in like them succeeding, because the only thing they get is like 50% or like 75% of ticket sales. Marvel still gets every toy they sell goes straight to Marvel. Like Marvel still has a vested interest. It's just the fact that they just don't get all of the movie money. And so as long as they keep listening to Feige, they should be doing fine. In the beginning of the podcast, I asked you what was your least favorite. Can you tell us your most favorite? Oh, the one you hate, the one that you hate the most. Can you tell us the one you love the most or like the most?
Uh, so probably Iron Man 3. That one, a lot of people gave it flack, and like a lot of the diehard fans really didn't like the send up they did with the Mandarin character with that. I never really, as a kid, cared that much for the Mandarin character. I thought he was, I don't know, Iron Man's this, super techie guy in a suit of armor, and he's fighting this dude with green skin who has rings that match out of them. He just doesn't really feel very well suited to Iron Man. He looks more like a Doctor Strange villain to me. But there was a movie a handful of years before Iron Man 1 came out called Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. I don't know if you've seen it,
I've seen
but the writer director of that, Shane Black, just the dialogue is so snappy and all that I was once I learned that Robert Downey Jr. was cast for Iron Man, I was so thrilled because I loved Kiss Kiss Bang Bang so much. And then I saw that Shane Black, the guy who directed and wrote Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, was working on Iron Man 3. I was really happy, and I did think that the dialogue in general in Iron Man 3 was kind of a cut above in terms of the snarkiness from the other movies. And that one was the first one that gave Iron Man like a proper theme song that you could whistle and all that. So I think that was probably my favorite, maybe tailed by Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and Doctor Strange. Although, if we're stepping outside of the MCU, I think I loved the Spider-Verse movie. I was very impressed with that.
Nice, nice. Thank you for sharing that, man. Is there anything else you would like to say about superhero adaptations?
Uh, sure. So I've got a pre-spoiler prediction about Black Widow. So it I know it's been pre-screened for critics already, but I have not seen it. Taskmaster is the villain, or is a villain in this movie. And I am calling dude looks like a lady. I we see that character. There's a mask on it. The character never speaks. This is a C or D list Marvel villain that nobody is going to care if they change, or if they do. It doesn't. There aren't going to be enough people to change anything. But so combine that with the fact that everybody wants to be surprised, and the fact that we've got a female lead, so there's the unity of opposites thing, that the hero and the villain are kind of two sides of the same coin. So and which is why the villain and the hero often have very similar power sets, and the villain is frequently an older or younger relative of the same sex as the hero. I'm predicting that Taskmaster is going to be a female. I don't know if it's Florence Pugh or Rachel Weisz. I'm guessing Florence Pugh, but we'll find out tomorrow if I'm in the wrong on that.
I mean, it is. I won't spoil it for anybody watching, man. But it's on the cast. Like
Oh, is that already commonly known that it's
yeah. I didn't know if it was commonly known, but like it's definitely not secret. Like they're not trying to hide it. I mean, I don't want to spoil it now. I can tell you when we finish, but yeah, I can. I didn't. Yeah. Well, you're right though. They did not blow that out of proportion. Though. I give more for that. Like it's not like, hey, check this out because okay. Well, maybe it's meant to be. I guess it's a secret because people don't care to look it up either. It's not like it's not a big name either. It's not a big name. So,
but if I go to IMDb, I'm going to see that Taskmaster was played by such and such.
You should, yeah. I mean, like I said, it was never. I knew why they were shooting it, who it was, but like I said, it's not a big person. Like I mean, well, in circles maybe. Like it's not like this person is not famous, but it just, you've seen them if that makes sense.
Okay. So then I'm behind on the news. Then I haven't read all the columns and whatnot.
Yeah. Cool. Is there anything else you would like to say about this topic?
I think we pretty well covered my bases.
Nice, nice. Well, man, thank you so much for coming on to the show, man. Is there anything you'd like to say to your fans? And please tell them where they can follow you.
Oh, oh yes, my legion of fans. I think I've got maybe 14 followers on YouTube right now. Well, all the baker's dozen of you, thanks for watching. So Instagram, I'm intermittently post my attempt to get into shape at Almost Hot. I think if you just search William Woody on YouTube, you'll find me. I should be more aggressive about promoting myself there, but yeah, that'd be about where you find me. Were we going to talk Suicide Squad, or have we may have run out of time here?
No, I just do it in two different parts.
Oh, I see.
But
okay, well then, yeah, at me at Almost Hot on Instagram and William Woody on YouTube.
Cool. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you guys for listening, and have an amazing day.